G'day reefers, I'm Cam the Fish Guy. Welcome to Gallery Aquatica TV. Today we're going to be talking about phosphate control in your reef tank. More specifically, we're going to be looking at the Two Little Fishies Phosban Reactors, and best of all, we get to feature the brand new Little Reactor. High phosphate levels in your reef tank is one of the most common problems that people encounter in reef tanks. Now, phosphate can cause the reduction in growth of your corals as well as excessive algae in your tank. We're going to be having a look at the Phosban reactors which use granular ferric oxide. Now, this is a type of media which absorbs phosphate, and Phosban reactors are one of the best ways to use this media. So let's open up the boxes and have a look at our Phosban reactors. So these are the three sizes of Phosban reactors. The first is the Phosban Reactor 550. We use these on large aquariums, typically tanks that are over 1,000 litres. This is the Phosban Reactor 150. This is used on smaller tanks, generally up to around about 500 litres. And this cute little guy here is the new Little Reactor. So let's show you exactly how you run these in your tank. Phosban reactors are really easy to set up. You don't need much in the way of equipment, pretty much just a pump, some hosing, some scissors to cut the hose, and your Phosban media. So we're going to be setting up the 150 today, and we'll show you the steps and what you need to do. The pump that you want to run on these systems is generally around about 1,000 litres an hour. Now, with that, you will typically have it turned down to a slower flow than 1,000 litres when you're running the Phosban media. You want to ensure that you don't put too much flow through your reactor, or else it will cause your media to crumble. So this is our pump. Now, I know that this pump at 1,000 litres an hour is the perfect size for our 12-16 mil hose, and so it's going to go straight from the pump to the reactor, like so. Now, importantly, we're going to have a close look at how you load your reactor with GFO. Phosban is probably my favourite type of GFO. I find it typically pulls more phosphate out of the water than a lot of the other brands, but there are other good brands available. We also sell Royal Phos, that's very popular. It's a little bit coarser, some people like that. So you put your stem down. Now there's a couple of ways that you can avoid tipping your GFO into the middle stem. I actually put my finger on the stem like this, and then I tip the GFO in over the top. You can put a bit of sticky tape over this stem, and that will also avoid the GFO going down into there. So I'll do it my way, finger over, and I just tip the GFO in onto top like so. Now, the amount of GFO that you use is something that you can modify depending on your requirements. I typically prefer to use a small amount of GFO in the reactor and change it more frequently. The reason why I use a small amount is I find that if you do that, you don't get as much caking of the GFO, and so it's more efficient. But it does mean that you need to change your GFO more frequently. So I'm going to put in a little bit more. I would say I normally aim for about 3 or 4 centimeters, inch and a half sort of thing. And now we put our sponge with the diffuser on top, like so. And this screws on top. Now, it's important to note that there is an O-ring in here to seal the top. So you can mount these outside of your sump if you choose, but I do typically mount them in the sump. Now, you get a few fittings for your reactor, which we'll have a look at. So you get a ball valve, which will allow you to accurately control the flow of water through your reactor. You get these soft 90-degree elbows, and you get a couple of barb fittings that you can use. Now these allow you to put your Phosban reactor in your sump and have a neater configuration with your hosing to the sump, to the reactor. So let's put these on our reactor. Bearing in mind with this reactor, your inlet or your intake into the reactor is this one in the middle here. So we're going to go from our pump to this point here. I'm going to cut the hose. The length of hose that you use is really determined by how the reactor is sitting in your sump. And I'm going to go from the pump to our ball valve, and I'm going to cut a little length of probably 20 centimeters so that we've got our ball valve in line. You can have it straight into the intake of the reactor, but I'm not going to do that today. And then from here we've got a barb fitting which then goes into the elbow. Now our outlet from the reactor is exactly the same. Got your little barb fitting there, out, and then we connect it up like so. And that's pretty much all there is to setting up a Phosban reactor. Something I would say is quite important is the flow through the reactor, and I use this ball valve to turn down the flow from the 1,000 litres per hour that's coming out of the pump to probably around about 400 or 500 litres per hour. You want it relatively slow. It's important that it's the Phosban media is kind of just dancing at the surface of the media. You don't want to see particles coming up high in the reactor. We have our Phosban Reactor 150 set up, ready to go on this tank here. We've got our GFO in, as we just put before. We've got our pump running here. Now, I'm going to turn the pump off with the ball valve, connect it onto the reactor, and turn it on gently. Now, whilst it's slowly filling with water, I'm going to use this opportunity to rinse the media, and slowly. And you'll see the water coming through the media is quite red. And so you want to ideally flush that red coloured water out of the reactor, and I like to flush it into a bucket, and that makes it easy for me to see when the water is running through it clear. But it doesn't take too long. The Phosban media is quite a clean media, so you can already see the cleanliness of the water at the bottom. Alright, so the water's running through it clean. Turn off the reactor, put our hose in the tank and turn it back on. And this is where I pay attention to the amount of movement in the media to determine the flow that I want through this reactor. There's a few bubbles in there, let's get rid of these bubbles. Okay, so we've got some good movement. I also like to be able to see the flow through the hose. That gives me a feel for how much water is going through. We've probably got, at the moment, maybe 200 litres an hour, maybe a little bit more, but the media is looking like it's moving the right amount. Let's just have a quick look at the little reactor, because this is very new on the market. This is in fact the first one that I've opened up and had a look at. So it's really very similar to the 150, and it's the same system, and really the only difference I can see is that it is a shorter unit. So that would make it easier to fit in certain aquariums. I would also have a slower flow going through this, and I would be inclined to have a smaller amount of the media. So you'd probably find this is perfect for your little nano tanks around about 100 litres or less, and preferably one with a sump so you can hang it in the sump or outside the sump. But certainly it's a very versatile unit that could be used in a number of ways with the Phosban media. So that's it for today's episode of Gallery Aquatica TV. Hopefully you've learned a little something about Phosban reactors and how they're used on your aquarium. Thanks for watching. I'm Cam the Fish Guy. Happy reefing. That's it for this week's episode of Gallery Aquatica TV. Don't forget to like and comment on all our videos and subscribe to our channel. Stay tuned to Gallery Aquatica TV for more exciting episodes to come. I'm Cam the Fish Guy. Happy reefing!